Good?
And that's not.
Okay.
All right.
But it's non-voting. It's just, yeah.
What do you got? I got 6.
Well, we still have
No, that's
35
slow.
seconds.
Is that slow?
This one,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait.
5:59. We're almost there.
1 minute.
The weather outside is.
And my phone is 5:59.
My son found the YouTube video.
Yeah.
That records us.
It looks like it's snowing.
Not Candy Robin. They didn't send any information.
Yeah, because I'm putting my Christmas tree for
Yeah, so they didn't send
Oh,
any.
wow, that's a long minute.
My good. Okay, now mine says 6.
Maybe be, yeah, review saying that it's wonderful necessarily.
I don't have anything of yours to show. No.
No. I just.
Okay. We're going to get our meeting started.
Wanna be cautious.
The October 26, 2022 meeting. We start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. All right, can we get a roll call?
Chair Snow,
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Here?
Commissioner Tippett.
Here.
Commissioner Leckie,
Here.
Commissioner Erickson,
Here.
Commissioner Benson,
Here.
Commissioner Kasparian.
Here.
A full house. All right, everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from October 12th?
Yes.
And
Yes.
nothing?
Did not see anything.
Wow. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye. Is it one of those? Yeah.
It is.
it is, I finally got it right. First time. All right. Our first one, our only one, is amendments to Title 17 of the Midvale City Municipal Code to address setbacks for garages, carports, and accessory structures within the SF-1 and SF-2 zones. Adam is going to teach us.
All right, thank you, Chairman. This is a proposed amendment for attached garages and carports, and then accessory structures and external ADUs in the SF1 and SF2 zones. The SF1 and the SF2 zones are largely developed. Many of those areas contain some of the city's older neighborhoods where many of the structures are considered non-conforming. Right now, the code would allow someone to go up to 4 feet if they wanted to expand their garage or carport to the side property line. There's been some discussion by some council members that they wanted us to look at this, and so what we've done is we have taken a look and are bringing this before you tonight. So again, for an attached garage and a carport, the code currently allows up to a 4-foot, or an expansion up to 4 feet from that property line if it's basically an existing garage or carport. What the proposed ordinance would allow, it would allow up to a 0 setback provided certain criteria are met. One of those is that the property be surveyed by a licensed surveyor, so the exact property line is known. That if that were to occur, there also would be no openings allowed on that side property line, no roof drainage to go onto the adjacent property. All fire and building codes would be required to be met. And then additionally, if someone didn't want to expand to the side but wanted to expand to the rear, it would allow an extension of that garage or carport to go back into the property line deeper at that current non-conforming setback if it's within, or if it's non-conforming today. So it would allow it to go deeper into the lot. So, and then as far as accessory structures and external ADUs, the current code allows a 2-foot side and rear setback for those to be placed. Again, this would allow an option to go to the property line, again, with some of those criteria that there be no openings on the property or on that property line, whether that's a window or door, there's no roof drainage, et cetera. And again, those fire and building codes would have to be met. We are hopeful that if this is passed, it would allow those who live in some of these areas where they find their structure non-conforming through no fault of their own, if they want to be able to expand, this would allow an expansion of a garage, carport, or the placement of an accessory structure in the back of the property. So this could allow additional options for people to expand on their property. It doesn't allow expansion of living space, it's strictly garage. And you could not have any living space above the garage, it's capped at the height. So there are certain things in the ordinance that are remaining. Simply, it's just allowing additional flexibility on those sides and some rear. So included in the packet that you were sent is a draft ordinance with the proposed language for change in red and then strike through where we're proposing that that be taken out. So with that, we can answer any questions and go from there.
So on the previous page, no opening on property line.
Correct.
So if they did carports, that would have to be a wall.
Just something covering that, yeah. So many times in a carport on the side, you'll have,
Would that have to be fire rated?
I don't know probably not for a carport. I was thinking more of a garage structure, but the carport would still not be able to, the drainage on the roof would not be able to go into the neighboring property.
Okay.
I've got two questions. So how many people are really going to come and get a permit and put this, and that's going to affect their neighbor? I mean, you've got people, I've got the guy down 10th East that's building a garage that's making an apartment above for his girlfriend, only he didn't tell anybody that, except the neighbor that he's next to, that he's building this lovely storage, but an apartment above it. Well, he doesn't have a permit. I already know he doesn't have a permit, I found out. And
I
then he was
think-
going into the sewer, linking into the sewer without asking. So,
There's always going to be people that try to skirt it, but again, if this is passed, even if it's not passed, people still need a permit to do any kind of expansion. Now, whether or not they get it, the only control we have over that is once we're made aware of that, we can go out and then take enforcement action.
it'll be interesting if they build a garage and it's draining onto the neighbor's property, because they're right up to the line, and then we go out and say, oh, you can't do that after it's already built.
No, they just have to put a gutter, have it drain back on their back, in their front or their back.
I think it would just be like any other ordinance that if it's found to be non-compliant, there are actions that we as a city can take, and then we go through those actions at that time.
That's what worries me with the zero. Is if a rain gutter is needed to be added, then there's no room.
Yeah, well, in the rain gutter, even with a rain gutter, you can't, when they typically go down, it can't go onto an adjacent
Yeah.
property.
Right.
Even at the 4 foot that it's at right now, is that standard? Yeah.
Right now, you can go up to 4 feet from your property line. So you could expand up to 4 feet of that
At
line.
that 4 feet, do you still need drainage off your roof?
There, it doesn't have any of that statement here, or currently, because that's,
Yeah.
You don't
There'd be
need,
enough
you don't
room,
need, yeah, you don't need rain gutters, but your water can't go onto your neighbor's property. So as long as you can get it in the 4 feet.
But if you have a 4-foot downspout that goes into your neighbor's property,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
That's not good.
I have to say, I really appreciate this, since I live on property that definitely fits this. We are to build lines, all of my neighbors are to the property line. So having the opportunity now to expand our garage out is wonderful, so.
and
will
one of the
agree,
reasons we
yeah.
put in, we thought it was important, especially to have, proof of a license survey. That way, if a
True.
surveyor goes out, there's record of where that property line is, rather than, well, I've just always assumed it's right here. And that would need to be submitted with any kind of a building permit
It's like when people
application.
put up their fence.
Yeah,
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the boundary line. Oh, actually, it's
Candy?
about 4 feet
You
over.
haven't had any issues.
I've had that.
You wouldn't
even in mine.
anticipate that, would you?
What
with
about,
this?
No, but this gives me the opportunity
Sure,
now to expand my garage out,
right.
not widthwise, but make it a little bit deeper
Oh, nice,
with
okay.
this. So that, it's great.
so with
Yeah.
that being said, will we have a maximum square footage that we would allow?
It's not so much a maximum square footage. There's a height limit, so there's still,
20?
it's a one-story, or it shall not extend above the roof line of the existing residential structure. So this doesn't allow you to have a house that's, you know, right here and then a garage way up here. It has to remain at that.
And the use of the space, it's
Yeah,
keeping
it's
consistent with that.
no living space, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I will say that this affects me directly as well, just because we have a neighbor directly on the property line and then another that's 4 feet off. So it does give some flexibility. I can see how this would be very beneficial if you're going about it permitting and doing it the correct way.
And there's still, the provision in there that remains is any new, like a new home construction on a vacant lot, or let's say you tear down a home and you rebuild, there are setback requirements for that. And those are not, this does not apply
Right.
to new home construction. This
Right.
is simply existing homes that have been there for years and years, and many of them are just non-conforming by nature of where they are and what the codes are today.
I think that alleviates a lot of concerns that people have, being older houses in Midvale, not having the flexibility that some of the new construction might have. So I think this allows some wiggle room to make houses a little bit more livable.
That was the intent behind it. If we
But
need to
when you-
make additional changes, we can.
When you have a one-car garage, that's just unheard of nowadays
Yeah.
unless you live in a townhome or small condo. And so to be able to have a two-car garage or a two-deep garage, you know, keeps you in Midvale rather than moving out.
Yeah.
And now, one question I had is, what happened to the item that came before us about patios? And one guy he was gonna go into the setback, his roof line, to the patio that he was extending onto his house.
It got approved.
It got
It got
approved.
approved.
Was that
Okay.
another, that's the one you worked on, right? That's what I was
Okay,
thinking.
so
Yeah,
that
that
got
one was
approved?
approved. And so
See, I
that
like
allowed
that.
this allows additional flexibility. So in the last year, this, I believe, is the third amendment to increase that flexibility. One of them was to allow a greater flexibility in like bay windows and window wells and overhangs and whatnot. Then there was one for like a rear patio, a rear setback. Now this one is an attached garage, a carport, or an accessory structure. So we're hopeful that through these, as we identify areas that, you know, it may warrant change, that we bring that forward, and we're hoping that this helps with that.
Do we want to put like a year built date? Like if they build a new house and then somebody buys it and then comes in a month later and wants to build it to their property line? There's
Isn't
nothing
this
that,
just for existing though?
This
This
is-
isn't for new builds.
but
This
if
is
it's-
existing, and in many cases, it's already non-conforming. But I don't,
So what's to say that somebody doesn't build a house and 6 months, a year later, decides they want to come in and build up to their property line on a new house?
so it does have a qualifier that if it's an existing single-family home that has an attached garage or carport that accommodates less than 2 cars.
Okay.
So this doesn't allow someone with a 2-car garage to suddenly say,
I want
I want to
to
add a third
That was
or a
my- that
fourth
was
or
my
something,
wording.
yeah.
I
That
probably
makes sense.
worded it wrong, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's qualified at the beginning.
Any other
So-
questions? No?
No, I think it's a good thing.
It's a benefit.
It's a benefit.
And there's
for
also
those who-
a qualifier of existing, that the house was built before the adoption of the provision, which is the zoning code. And so anything that was built before the zoning code went into effect could be considered grandfather, pre-existing, or non-conforming, so.
Okay, thanks. And we open this up to public hearing?
Yeah, we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wanna open it?
You can.
Move that we open this up to public hearing.
Seeing none, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Can we get a roll call?
Chair Snow,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Leckie,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Got a motion?
Do we got a motion?
We really can't see
I
it.
could change it again, but it's in the report,
Oh, I
right
didn't
here.
print the report.
but I can change it if we need.
No. Get it.
Someone needs that.
I move that we recommend approval of the amendments as provided in Exhibit A with the finding noted in the staff report.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call?
Chair Snow,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Leckie,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. And that moves on to city council.
Yeah, well.
Okay. Next up, staff updates and other business. And we have a presentation by Gardner Company
On view.
on the View 78 project and surrounding area. And are we having staff do anything?
I've invited the Gardner Group to come and just kind of give you an update on the whole area down there, kind of what their next project, what they're looking at as far as conceptually. And then that will eventually come before you after a staff review, and also just further what's going on in the general area and what the idea still is for that area. So I thought it would be helpful to have them come tonight and talk about that. And so if you have questions, feel free to ask any questions. This isn't an action item tonight, so there's no decision to be made, but it is meant to be a discussion. And so if there are questions, please address them.
Okay,
Perfect.
welcome.
It's good to see everybody. I'm Mark with the Gardner Company. We haven't been here for a little while, I think since Zions Bank, but we absolutely love working with Adam and his team on projects. Tonight with me, do I need to state my name?
I think you did.
Well, like address or anything, doesn't matter. So usually I'm used to like, you have to state your name and your address and all that,
It's
sorry.
either that or I just know you. so-
Yeah, no, sorry, 201 South Main Street, Mark Murdoch. So tonight with me, I have Liza Hart, who is our in-house architect, and then Dave Dennison, who manages all things construction for us. So they're probably gonna do most of the walking through, but we're excited to show you what we've been working on. And I'll probably turn it over to Liza, and then we'll go from there. So please do ask questions, though.
Hello,
Welcome.
Liza Hart, as Mark stated. So we submitted our phase one of our residential projects at Jordan Bluffs to DRC, and then presented it to the city council and received feedback. And that's why it was pulled from your agenda, so that we could respond to some of that feedback. And we'd like to show you what we've been working on. And one of the things that I think created some of the concern was that we were showing the first part without giving the whole context of what our plans were on the west side of Bingham Junction. So that's what we'd like to show you today, to put that into a larger context. So what we're looking at here is what was submitted with the first DRC submittal. And some of the comments were, how does it connect to the surrounding area? And what is the relationship to the street? And it was objectionable to have the parking on the street side of the buildings. And also just the sort of rigid repetition of the buildings. And what we've been working on since then to respond, we can see here, one of the things we did was to shorten the two buildings on the corner of Ivy and Bingham Junction to allow for a better connection to the park that is planned across Bingham Junction and have that stronger pedestrian connection to the park across the street. We lost a few units to do that, but I think that it improved the site plan considerably. And you can also see a difference in the spacing between the buildings. We've sort of opened it up and allowed for better pedestrian circulation and more green space between those buildings. This project is comprised of 8 5-story residential buildings that are all surface parked. And another objection was just the amount of surface parking and concern that it appeared to be overparked. And we want to assure you that in spite of the fact that there is a lot of parking, it isn't overparked. It just is in compliance with the ordinance for the parking. Another objection or concern was the expectation that we are doing mixed use, and the question of where's the retail. It isn't mixed use, it's all residential. And so what we wanted to do was show you the broader context of what is planned across the way at Bingham Junction. So you can see here as we zoom out that we have like a strong connection to the park that is planned across the way. And scrolling up to the north, we have the Zions Technology Center here at the north, and then from that, running down the center is what we are calling High Street, and the development is really organized around High Street. And the goal for High Street is that we develop a very vibrant streetscape with an active ground plane, and that is where the retail is best located. That's where we can get the critical mass and activity that will help support that retail. And that is to allay the concern that we aren't actually proceeding with a mixed-use project. We're showing this in multiple phases because the earlier phases are just necessarily surface parked, but we want to communicate our aspiration to have, over time, be able to densify and hopefully do some structured parking. What you'll see here is the office uses in this buff color and the residential uses in white. And then you can see the parking structures that we hope to infill as the project develops. And then moving further south, we're even becoming more aspirational and hoping that at some point we could do a high-rise residential in the future when the market kind of allows for that. So those are the things that we've been working on. Again, the first phase is this section here, which we'll be submitting, and this will come to you again once we've been through DRC. And that is the first phase. The second phase being across the way here, shown in the orange. And that is divided, probably really could be broken down into multiple sub-phases. And then the final phase being to the south. So that's, in a nutshell, what we've been working on. And I haven't provided a ton of context. I wasn't entirely sure how familiar you were with our first phase. So I'm happy to go through anything else related to that first phase if you have questions about that.
The first thing that kind of came to my mind, and this is that there's concern that it was overparked. And I just don't understand that there's a concern for it being overparked because everybody complains about there not being enough parking and that they're parking on the streets. And so that just is humorous to me that we're worried that it's overparked when that's what we hear is that it's always underparked and there's never enough parking spaces. And so that's funny that that was a concern presented to you, that it was overparked, because...
To be fair, it was due to an error on the architect's drawing with the count. So to be fair, it was
It
an
did
honest
appear
mistake.
that there might have been,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we just wanted to, and it is when you have 607 units that are surface parked per the ordinance, it does result in a lot of parking.
Parking.
So-
Now, on the High Street, are you looking at having ground level retail in those residential buildings and commercial buildings?
Yes, we are.
That's the idea. So that's where because
Mixed use.
I was thinking on Bingham Junction Parkway, I don't know if that's the best place to have retail walkable community on a 4-lane boulevard.
That's right.
So that makes sense
Yeah.
that you're moving it over, so that gives us a much bigger picture of what the vision is.
It's been a long time since we've looked at this, but the idea with High Street was that you slow down on High Street. And that is where we're trying to do, we referenced a project back in the day, if you've ever been there, called Santana Row. It's where you just, it's more of just it's kind of retail, walking to the park. That's the idea. I don't know if it's your coffee shops, your service stores, your very light retail, probably 30 to 40,000 square feet of retail total, but it would be mixed through all those office and retail buildings. That's the idea. And it's gonna take a while, I'm just being honest. Like, when we did View, if you guys remember, when we did View 72, we had built Overstock and Savage and all those buildings, and then the very last thing to come was the retail, but we're definitely planning on it, so.
And that's indicated here in this dashed red line at the corners here. That's the goal.
So the goal is just in the dashed areas is retail.
It'll change, just so you know, but that's the idea, is that we'll put them in there. Could I see some up on this corner? Can you point right there? Right there, sure. We gotta probably spend a little more time looking at that, but that's the idea.
The other thing that we can do to help create an active ground plane, even if there isn't retail, and there's also a period of time before you have kind of the critical mass of enough people there to really support
To
retail.
support that, yeah.
Is you can, in these residential projects, you can put amenity spaces that are treated like storefronts, and you can also do ground level units that have doorsteps on the street to help create that pedestrian-friendly, more urban feel for High Street. So the things we can do in that transition period until there's enough critical mass to support the retail.
Because that's the one concern that I had looking at that area is across the way, there's a lot of retail and there's a lot of apartments and stuff like that. And it was starting to feel that this was all commercial and residential, and that there was no retail going to be in there. And so now all of a sudden you have a suburb and a drivable community rather than a walkable community. And that's what I was concerned about, that we're losing our walkability in that area.
We agree, and one of the things we've heard kind of loud and clear through the years, and we kind of committed to Zions, and we just haven't gotten there just yet, is they need daycare. They need all the standard services, whether it's a coffee shop or sandwich shop or whatever. And so they did a great, if you haven't had a chance to go in their public space, the cafeteria they have, it's awesome, but they need more than just that. So the concepts we've thought about is, could we do a food hall? Could we do things like that? So we have grandiose plans, but this is kind of the first shot at it. The other thing, if I can just zoom out a little bit, this, just so you know, this is I'm just trying to be very realistic. This is kind of the long-range, dense version. It's gonna take us quite a while to get here. I don't wanna set any false expectations, but this is a very dense version of what we wanna do. It'll not look like this day one. So, and we've been working on it, as you know, for years, but
Yeah.
just, Mark, you showed me that plan, I said, well, I meant like 20 years it's gonna take by the time we get all the way built out, so.
There's a lot going on here.
It's awesome, it's what we want.
There's a lot, so.
I
to
remember
Mark's-
the original with a linear park going through the center with office buildings
Yeah.
around it, and
Yeah.
things have
If you go,
changed.
Shane, or Councilman, if you go back, or Commissioner, if you go back, it was initially all warehouses.
Yeah,
So that was the
yeah.
initial candy.
Yeah, that was-
Sorry. Anyways, you remember, so we've come a long way, but it just still, the economy's not awesome at the moment, so we're working through it, so.
To Mark's point, we're going to build out this phase 1 on the corner of Ivy and Bingham Junction. And then in phase 2, we will focus on High Street So we'll try to line High Street. So in that's phase 2, this might all be surface parked, where you're seeing, where you have the buildings along Bingham Junction, and then you can see the parking structures in between the buildings on Bingham Junction and the buildings on High Street. So we'll focus on High Street and really focus on placemaking and creating the qualities that will really create the conditions that will bring people here and help spur further development. So that's the way we see this evolving, and it is going to be an evolution, and it is going to be changing, but we wanted to be sure and provide the whole context so that when everyone is evaluating this first phase, they don't think that somehow we're not doing what we said we'd do in creating this mixed-use environment. Is this just the first kickoff?
When do you anticipate that?
The first phase, we are charging ahead, trying to do it as soon as we can get through the processes.
My
So,
broken record is there's no place for these people to eat.
Yeah.
Where did they go? They're not gonna go to Zion's, they're not gonna walk clear over there, they're not gonna go to Gardner Village. There's no way. There's no place for those guys to go eat, take their kids. Yeah, there's no place. So it's not really stellar for
But
people
I have,
that live there.
yeah, I have to say, I do really appreciate the changes that you've made from when we looked at this in our last meeting, when you brought it to us. I really appreciate the openness that I see now makes me feel so much better about where we're going. My one suggestion, and I know it's like way out there, but to make the citizens of Midvale a little bit more warm and fuzzy about this, is there any way that we can start making some of the green space available sooner rather than waiting for the very end?
So I might have Nate help me respond to that one. Did you hear that one, Nate? Yeah. Because I'll let Nate respond and then I can, because we are
I
ready
just
to
know that
install.
there's a lot
Yeah,
of,
so go for it, Nate.
Yeah, the way that the code is written is as different phases come in, those sections of the park, which is really the green space I think we're talking about. not
Yes,
the-
correct.
That those come online. That's pretty critical from the city standpoint because once those come online, they're dedicated to the city. The city starts maintaining and is really owning and managing those parks. We don't want, if you've walked up on Jordan Bluffs, it is a massive site. And we don't want park out there in the middle of nowhere that we're maintaining that is really not accessible to anyone. So the way that the code is designed is as each phase comes on, then that specific area of the park comes into play, which is exactly what happened with Zion's. The very first section of the city portion of the park has been, or is in the process of being built.
So just to let you know, we were gonna install the park from here all the way down to here with Zion's. And then the way I understand it is that we started kind of getting the logistics of like, well, where are people gonna park? Where, you know, does the city have the budget to maintain it? And so as we move along this process, it's a great comment and we need to get it in faster. But we kind of got to the logistics and we're like, oh wait, like some of this doesn't make sense to do right now. So we'll continue to work with Nate, but I think it's a great comment,
Okay.
so.
And I'm even thinking, even like, I know we've talked about dog parks and things
Yeah.
like that. Even if there was a way to even do a
Like
small,
fence something. and
a
just make
small
it- yeah.
section to,
Sure.
so that the public can see that this is the direction we're going, instead of, well, this is what they told us we were gonna get and we don't have anything.
Yeah, here
You
we
know,
are.
and that's the comments I
Sure.
get from.
Let us think on that.
And
come
so
back to
that's,
you.
I'm just
Okay.
bringing that up, just
It's a good
because
idea.
I think even if a small little section could,
Yeah.
we could see something happening, that would make people feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy.
you know, we have built out the pickleball courts and the basketball that is shown here, this big blue
So
square.
that is open.
This is open.
Yeah.
It appears to be part of the Zions
Yeah.
project. It is
We may need
Midvale
to put a
City
sign
Park.
that says open to the public.
So I
Yes.
would
Yeah.
suggest that maybe as a city, we have a,
Pickleball tournament?
Yeah.
I'm in.
I mean, I'm sure
I'm
we
in.
could,
Let's do
I'm sure
this.
we could get the mayor on board to maybe, so that people will come and see that that's available, because
Right.
people don't know that that's available.
That's a
Right.
great idea.
Yep.
Or a ribbon cutting
Yeah.
Something,
type ceremony.
something to make so that
Yeah.
that people know that that's accessible.
Great
Yep.
idea.
The
It's
pickleball
Midvale.
courts across from my house are busy constantly.
Yeah.
So to have another pickleball court access would
How many,
be,
are there 2 or 4 courts?
There
I
are
can't remember.
2, and then there's a third
Basketball.
one that's sort of shared with the
yeah,
basketball.
so
I
I
would
would
encourage
suggest to
more.
the city that maybe we do
We'll
that.
coordinate with either Nate or Adam, but I think that's a lovely idea.
See, I had no idea that that was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, nobody
Yes.
does.
And
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
look- they're-
if you go, like,
they
the
look
benches
awesome.
are.
They look
So
like
there's
they're
your
part of
benches.
mine, yeah, exactly, and that's what I need. I just need something, I need
Yeah,
to
we
be
can-
able to go back and say, you guys, there's pickleball
We could
over at
do an
the.
event where maybe we host some food out of the cafeteria, people come and it's a, you know, some kind
Yeah,
of
it doesn't
something.
even
There's
have to be-
sand
Or make it
volleyball.
easy, just come, yeah.
Just doesn't even have to be any big deal, but
Yeah.
to let people know that that's
Yeah,
there, and
this-
that's
this-
available.
3.5 acres of Midvale City Park
Yeah, I
has
just
been
think
built
we need to make that,
already.
yeah, 'cause
And
I
then
had
the-
no idea that that was accessible to us. I thought that was part of the Zions
Yeah.
Bank
Yep, no,
For sure.
that's,
campus
That
and
makes
not,
sense.
yeah, so.
and then as we march our way from north to south, is how we see, we also envision starting on the west side of High Street here, where what we're showing on the screen now. As we develop that, then
Then that
adjacent to it, the park will come
And
come
that'd be
online
great,
as
yeah.
we move down.
But it's nice to know that there's part of it there already, and that's, and then maybe even having a conceptual idea of what the park's gonna be like.
Yeah.
You don't have to
But-
include all the buildings.
But to Commissioner Anderson's point, I agree that we need to look at putting retail in those first buildings, because it is, you're hard pressed to get food in this area. And you guys know, I've been coming out here for like 15 years. And so I
You
know.
could have area for food trucks would be
Yeah.
fine. You'd still have,
And the park is planned, but even in the temporary, maybe we think of some
You
food
gotta think of
trucks or
something,
something,
but
yeah. It's a good idea.
it would
So,
encourage people to
For
be
sure.
there then if they go, if I move here, I can walk.
Every Thursday, at least, there's a food truck or whatever. the case is,
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
I
what
mean,
happens
so,
in our
I
office,
keep thinking
so.
of Soda Row out
Yeah.
I mean, why
And
are we
Daybreak.
not? Yeah.
Yeah.
We could be that, which benefits you, but benefits the city as well. Everything we look at doesn't seem to, you know, what's in it for the city?
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, we're not getting any benefit, 900 residents in there. Sorry, I exaggerated a little bit
Oh, that's
just
okay,
then.
that's okay.
But-
Hopefully the parks-
700.
Hopefully the
Yeah,
parks,
sorry.
Units.
hopefully the parks do provide some benefit, but you're right, until they're built out, until they're done, until you have the retail, that's what really benefits.
Yeah, the retail, you get retail in there and it's
People
gonna
will
make a
be
difference
happy
to
to.
people.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Adam or Nate, or anybody else, any last questions or comments? We sure appreciate them.
Well, the one thing I think of is I would like to see more retail than just the corners.
Okay, fair enough.
Just so that there's more options for dining, coffee, whatever else. I mean, you know, you can only have so many coffee shops in one area, but,
Not true.
you know, just,
Well, and something kind of, I mean, we go back to Daybreak and how it's walkable, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of little retail, cafe. It would be lovely to have something similar to that here,
That is the goal.
and that would be
That is the
lovely.
goal.
But you're
And
gonna
that-
need to do it in phase one.
Yeah,
ASAP.
Well, of this High Street right here, we agree, yeah, we agree. We'll let us kind of replan this a little bit.
What?
You're talking phase,
So I do
Yeah,
have a
phase
question.
phase one or phase two?
they're talking phase 2.
I'm
Oh, phase two, is that?
Well,
No,
we're just
I'm
saying on
talking
High
right
Street,
here.
and
On
that-
High
I think
Street.
we're calling that
Yeah.
phase 2, but I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And that what we do want to do is, you know, again, like vibrant places that are walkable have an active ground plane. And there are things that we can do to transition, because what we don't want is to build spaces that aren't being, we want them to be used until we can get the retail there, so that we
Right.
don't have vacant, if your ground plane, if your streetscape where pedestrians are walking is filled with, you know, boarded up for lease spaces, we don't want to do that either. So we want to, like, you know, that's where you can make changes to the design that, you know, you have maybe loft units that face the street, have a doorstep to the street, and then that are designed in a way that they accommodate retail as that comes in, so that you can phase it in. There are a lot of ways to achieve that active ground plane that makes a place a desirable place to be, a magnet, and yes, retail is an important part
And
about
the
it.
green space, like Candy's saying, you get green space where you have outdoor concert, things like that. You're gonna bring people in, thus they'll go to the retail part, they'll go get an ice cream, they'll do, you know, whatever we do. We gotta make the space available to everyday use. Green space is the way to go for things like that.
Yeah,
People miss
absolutely.
that. People wanna go somewhere. We were all talking about how fun it was to have outdoor movie night, you know, or outdoor concert.
Yeah.
We should be able to do that. Taylorsville doesn't have it just there. You know, they do it all the time. We don't. Why don't we?
I think what else is going to help this too is as Main Street gets more revitalized, it's going to be a corridor to draw people over to this space. And so it's
vice
it's
versa.
very, you know, I think it's a,
both lift each other
yeah,
instead of,
it's
like,
got to
taking
be,
away, they lift
yeah,
each
it's got to
other.
be a cohesive kind of plan that it carries over. And it will in the long run. It's just, you know,
You don't want everybody going to Gardner Village. You want them across the
we
street.
want to have it immediate. We all want to have it immediate, and it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, even Daybreak took to get to where Daybreak
Oh,
is
yeah.
today.
Yeah, it takes time.
It
Yeah.
takes, yeah.
But
And
as
it-
long as we start seeing some progress in that direction, and that's why I'm saying if we do something with the pickleball courts that are there, so
We
that
love
we
it.
can,
Give us
all
a
of
date.
us,
We'll be there.
all
We
of a
love
sudden
that
say
idea,
to the
so.
community, here's
Hey,
the
it's
start,
open.
here's the start of what's gonna happen. And
Absolutely.
I think that will make a big difference in the community's outlook.
I even think, I mean, Daybreak, I think, well, last I heard is only 45% built out.
Yeah, and that's been how many years? I mean, that's. like-
Yeah.
20?
So
20
it's
something.
20
not even
years.
halfway there. And so it's gonna be years before this gets, when you can walk away and move on to the next big thing.
Now, to go back to phase one, because I think that's where you were looking for feedback.
That's right, yeah. Do you have any questions there? We should be thinking about?
I don't know if I was on the commission when you first proposed it, but did the floor area ratio change? Because the buildings seem a lot skinnier. I just don't know.
So over here, the early iterations were actually showing like Real Salt Lake practice fields, and there's, I don't know how
Right, right.
far back you're thinking.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
there were
because I don't know
some-
how much taller they got necessarily versus the
They're
parking
five
field.
story now,
We
right?
did
They're
break
5
up
stories.
a bunch
Yeah.
of the buildings, if maybe that was.
Maybe, because the ratio looks
But to
different, yeah.
Liza's point, there was visions earlier of different things on this, and it was unfortunate they didn't work out, but they didn't
Yeah.
pan out, so.
Right, I was just concerned because they look maybe taller and skinnier, but if, it's just,
You know, if for a multifamily building, you have, it's very, you know, you have the corridor down the center, and then if they get too deep, then you don't get adequate daylighting. So there's
Right.
sort of a sweet spot in terms of their
Yeah.
width, what they want to be. Now, multifamily projects are what we call a wrap, where there's a parking structure in the center and then it's wrapped around. Those appear like a large cube-like form.
Right.
Because they have the parking kind of in the center, but for a freestanding surface parked type building, that, the dimensions are pretty typical for,
This is like a super minor detail, but we're trying to create, even with Zion's, a trail where you can run around the entire park. And that was something Councilman Glover mentioned, and, you know, we kind of brought this circle in, but then we created this walkway, if you can see, and it doesn't really show up too much on this drawing, but you can kind of come all the way around, it's like a gazebo, whatever, and then you kind of keep coming around. So I thought that he had a great idea, and so we implemented it, and it was, so that's kind of what we're showing on that.
Make it more of a healthier
Yeah, and just
environment.
And connect
inviting,
and
more like,
invite
hey,
people.
I'm walking by, I don't have to not go in there, like, it's open, and let me just check out what's going on in there, so,
Right.
yeah. Thank you so much, we sure appreciate your comments. Any last questions before we let you guys move on with your?
I like the corner that you opened it up and tied it into there. I think that's really important.
It looks a lot better.
And I like that they're separated and broken up, because it was looking very, the thought was it looked like something from Ukraine, and was just,
We heard that part loud and clear.
yeah.
We
And
caught
so-
that. It was not missed on us, just so you know.
So it
looks
just.
Thank you for your comments.
It looks
This is-
very, it looks a lot more inviting and, connected than it did before.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll be
Great.
back. Adam, when would you guess? We probably a month before we come back, we'll get formal stuff
I would say a
going.
month or so, and
Okay.
then, because what would come back here, this fulfills the requirement to have a discussion with the planning commission, the code requires that. The next step would be the large-scale master plan, which is
will
what
come through.
this would,
Yeah.
we would go through that, and then bring that back. That would be recommended to council, and then they would act on that with an accompanying development agreement,
Great.
so.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. We'll
Thanks
see you
so much for
roughly in
your
a month or so.
time. We'll see you
Thank
soon.
you for your time.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. Item 2 on upcoming meetings and projects.
At one of our next meetings, we're going to have a training by Garrett on conditional uses and what you as a planning commission are able to do with those and what you are not able to do, if you will. We thought that would be beneficial, as, we do have a fair number of conditional use permits that you see. And so it is helpful to kind of talk about that in greater detail. I know sometimes it's been expressed that, you feel like your hands might be tied in certain situations, and in some cases you're right. And so we're going to talk about why that is. So we'll do that at an upcoming meeting.
And
That's all.
then, did you guys all see the email, Growth Housing Land Workshop, 11/10? Everybody get that one?
Yeah,
I did.
Okay.
From
I
Wendell.
didn't read it, but I saw it.
I'll be out of town.
Yeah, anytime that we are made aware of opportunities that we feel that you might benefit from or you might have an interest in, we'll send those your way. And even if some of them have a nominal fee, that's something that we are happy to look at and cover. So we love that you're interested in the training opportunities. It was great to see some of you at the APA conference, and I know all of your schedules don't allow you to go to all of them, but for the ones you can go to and have an interest in, we'd love for you to go, so.
Garrett's been kind of quiet tonight. Nobody's in trouble?
Keep it that way.
Okay, okay. All right,
The less we hear from you, the better
Yeah.
we're doing.
we're behaving. All
Somewhat.
right. Anybody else have anything they need to talk about? All right.
Nothing I need to talk about in public.
You wanna adjourn?
I move that we close the meeting at 6:47.
Is it all in favor?
No.